There is a version of you that has already achieved all of your dreams, living right now in a parallel reality just a few millimeters away.
But you will never be able to access it because you were programmed to navigate only through the versions of reality where you repeat the same failures as your parents.
Bashar, an ET channeled by Daryl Anka for 37 years, has been sharing that we shift between realities billions of times per second.
But your deepest beliefs, those installed when you were too young to question them, function as invisible walls, allowing you to access only the realities that conform your inherited limitations. You think you are making choices, but you are just selecting from among the few options that your programming allows you to see. The same fears that destroyed your mother's dreams are choosing your future right now. The same scarcity that your father accepted as absolute truth is dictating your financial decisions. You are not living your life. You are navigating through the script that they wrote for you before you could even speak. And the most disturbing part, the reality where you are free from this programming exists right now, but you cannot see it.
You do not live in one reality. You navigate through infinite parallel realities, and your beliefs determine which version you are experiencing right now. Daryl Anka has been proving this for 40 years through a phenomenon that defies everything that science has established about the human brain. The phenomenon began in 1973 when Anka had 2 UFO sightings in broad daylight over Los Angeles. But it was only a decade later, in 1983, that he first experienced what would come to completely transform our understanding of the nature of human consciousness. During a meditation session, Anka spontaneously entered a sustained gamma brain state. In this state, he began to receive and transmit information from an intelligence that identified itself as Bashar, describing itself as a first contact specialist from a human extraterrestrial hybrid civilization located in a parallel timeline, approximately 300 years in what we would consider our future. Neuroscientists who have studied Anka during the channelings have documented something extraordinary. The personality centers of his brain shut down completely during the process. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for personal identity and conscious decision-making, becomes inactive. Simultaneously, the brain's set point, the rate at which the brain processes information, increases instantaneously in a way that defies established neurological models. According to conventional neuroscience, changes in the brain's set point take weeks or months of consistent practice. During channeling, this change occurs in seconds. You have already experienced the gamma state. Whenever you enter completely in the zone, that state where time seems to stop, where you lose your sense of self and become one with the activity you are performing, your brain operates at gamma frequency. Elite athletes experience this during exceptional performances. Artists experience it during moments of genuine creation. Children naturally enter this state when they are completely absorbed in imaginative play. The difference between these fleeting moments and what happens during channeling lies in the sustaining and depth of the state. Anka maintains consistent gamma waves for hours, something that researchers have confirmed through electroencephalograms performed during hundreds of sessions. The data shows patterns of brain activity that do not correspond to any known state of consciousness, neither waking, nor sleeping, nor deep meditation. Bashar explains that this phenomenon represents a form of interdimensional telepathic communication. The information does not travel through conventional space-time, but through what quantum physics calls non-locality. The human brain, operating at sustained gamma frequency, becomes capable of accessing what Bashar calls template reality. The template reality where all possibilities exist simultaneously before manifesting as specific experiences. According to the transmissions documented over 4 decades, extraterrestrial civilizations observe and evaluate humanity's readiness for open contact precisely through these telepathic communications. Each time someone on Earth establishes this type of conscious connection, it creates a resonance point in the collective consciousness network that accelerates the evolution of the species as a whole. The predictions are specific. Around 2027, humanity will experience the first open and undeniable contact with non-terrestrial intelligences. Not through Hollywood invasions or secret government meetings, but through a collective frequency shift that will make it impossible to ignore the presence of other forms of consciousness interacting with our planet. The process has already begun. UFO sightings have increased exponentially in the last 5 years, according to official Pentagon data. More people are reporting expanded consciousness experiences than at any other time in recorded history. What Anka demonstrates through his work is not a special gift or a unique ability. It is a latent capacity in every human brain, waiting to be activated through the correct frequency alignment. You possess the same neural circuits, the same capacity to access gamma states, the same biological interface for interdimensional communication. The only difference lies in the permission you give yourself to explore beyond the limits of what you were taught was possible. Your consciousness is not confined to your physical body. It exists as an information field that can tune into different frequencies of reality, accessing knowledge and experiences that transcend the limitations of linear space-time. And it is exactly through this capacity to tune into different frequencies that you navigate through the multiple versions of reality available at each moment. The reality you're experiencing right now is one among billions of parallel versions happening simultaneously. Every thought you have, every emotion you feel, every belief you maintain, literally changes which version of reality you are experiencing. This is not a metaphor. It is the literal functioning of the structure of the universe. Quantum physics has demonstrated through the double-slit experiment that particles exist in multiple states simultaneously until they are observed. Hugh Everett III proposed in 1957 the many worlds interpretation, where each quantum possibility creates a parallel universe. What Bashar reveals through Darryl Anka is that you are constantly shifting between these parallel universes based on your vibrational frequency. Imagine that there are infinite versions of you right now. One version is reading this text and feeling skeptical. Another version is reading and feeling excitement. A third version never even found this content. All of these versions exist now, each in its own timeline, each as real as the one you are experiencing. The only difference is which version you are tuning into through your vibration. Your vibration is determined by your deepest beliefs about who you are and what is possible. When you maintain a negative vibration, fear, anger, frustration, you literally can only perceive and access realities that correspond to that frequency. It is like tuning into a specific radio station. You cannot hear the classical music station when you are tuned to the heavy metal frequency. Look at what happens when you are angry. Suddenly, you perceive only evidence that justifies your anger. The slow driver in front of you, the bank line that doesn't move, the irritating coworker, everything seems to conspire to confirm your emotional state. But here is what is really happening. You have shifted to a version of reality where these negative experiences are predominant. In a parallel version, operating at a different frequency, the same driver is maintaining normal speed. The bank line flows quickly. The co-worker is being helpful. When you raise your frequency, through genuine gratitude, excitement, love, you shift to versions of reality where positive experiences are more likely. The opportunities that were literally invisible to you at a low frequency become obvious. The person who can help with your project appears out of nowhere. The resource you needed emerges coincidentally. The solution to the problem that seemed impossible reveals itself as simple. But there is a deeper layer to this process. Before birth, as pure consciousness, you establish certain themes and challenges to explore in this physical experience. Bashar calls this template-level reality, the template level of reality. You choose to be born into a certain family with certain predispositions in specific circumstances. These elements form what we can call the basic structure of your experience. However, and this is fundamental, how you navigate through these themes depends entirely on your free will, moment to moment. If you choose to explore the theme of scarcity, for example, you can navigate through it as a victim, remaining at low frequencies and experiencing versions of reality where scarcity is constant and painful. Or you can use that same theme as a catalyst to discover your ability to create abundance, shifting to higher frequencies where the same initial theme transforms into mastery and fulfillment. Each choice you make, no matter how small it seems, is actually a selection of which parallel reality you will experience next. Deciding to have coffee instead of tea is not just a beverage choice. It is a selection of an entire timeline where the consequences of that choice unfold. In the reality where you have coffee, you might have a specific conversation at the coffee shop. In the reality where you have tea, that conversation never happens and your life follows a completely different trajectory. The speed of this shifting between realities is incomprehensible to the conscious mind. Bashar explains that we shift realities billions of times per second, so fast that we create the illusion of continuity, like frames of a film creating the illusion of movement. Each frame is a complete and static parallel reality. The movement and change we perceive come from our consciousness, moving through these frames at inconceivable speed. The power of this understanding is transformative. You are not stuck in one reality, trying to change it. You are constantly selecting which reality to experience based on the frequency you choose to maintain. The reality where your dreams are already realized exists now. The reality where your problems are already solved exists now. The only question is, can you adjust your frequency to access them? The answer lies in your most fundamental beliefs. Suppose you deeply believe that you are a victim of circumstances. In that case, you will only be able to access realities that confirm that belief if you recognize your power as a conscious navigator of parallel realities and infinite possibilities open instantly. There is an exact sequence of actions that instantly aligns you with your preferred reality. Bashar has transmitted this formula through Darryl Anka for 4 decades, and thousands of people have documented radical transformations by applying it. The formula works because it operates on the fundamental principles of how consciousness interacts with the structure of reality. First part, act in the direction of what contains more passion than any other option available right now. The keyword here is available. You don't need to abandon everything and move to Tibet. If the available options right now are washing the dishes, answering emails, or taking a walk, and the walk generates more excitement, you walk. If the only available option is to rest because you are sick, and sleeping is what excites you most, you sleep. Passion is not just a pleasant emotion. It is literally the vibrational translation of your soul's communication, indicating the next step on your unique path. When something genuinely excites you, without an apparent logical reason, that is your internal navigation system working. It is your fundamental frequency saying, this direction is aligned with who you really are. Second part, take that action as far as you can go without forcing. When the excitement naturally diminishes, when doors close, when resistance increases significantly, that is the sign that you have completed that cycle. Synchronicity then presents the next most exciting thing. You don't abandon projects out of superficial boredom. You recognize when the genuine energy that was driving that specific action has completed itself. A musician might feel intense passion to compose a song. He composes for 3 hours until the energy naturally shifts. Trying to force 2 more hours won't produce the same result as following the next excitement, which might be cooking, calling a friend, or studying something completely different. Each passionate action, even if it seems disconnected, is weaving the perfect path to your realizations. Third part, act without insistence on a specific outcome. This is where most people sabotage the formula. Your physical mind can imagine only a microscopic fraction of the available possibilities. When you insist that the outcome must look a certain way, you literally block millions of superior paths that would lead to what you really want, the essence behind the imagined outcome. You want a specific job because you believe it will bring security, fulfillment, and abundance. But when you act with passion, without attachment to getting that specific job, the universe can deliver security, fulfillment, and abundance through paths that your mind could never have conceived. The job of your dreams might come through a casual encounter in a bookstore, not through the resume you were obsessed with perfecting. Fourth part, remain in a positive state regardless of the outcome. This doesn't mean pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It means recognizing that you can always extract value from any experience. When something seemingly negative happens, the person operating at this frequency asks, how does this serve my growth? What redirection is being offered? What limiting belief is being exposed so that I can release it? An entrepreneur loses his biggest client. Operating in a negative state, he spirals into panic and despair, accessing only realities where more losses occur. Maintaining a positive state, he recognizes the opportunity to reassess his business model, diversify his client base, or pivot to something more aligned with his current passion. The failure becomes the catalyst for exponential success. Fifth part, constantly examine your definitions and release fear-based beliefs. Every action you take or avoid is based on definitions you accept as true. If you define money as hard to get, you will experience that reality. If you define relationships as always end in pain, you will navigate only through realities that confirm this. The most destructive beliefs operate unconsciously. You don't even realize you have them until you examine your behavior patterns. Why do you always sabotage relationships when they get serious? Examine the belief. Maybe you unconsciously believe that true intimacy means loss of identity. Why can you never keep money? Examine the belief. Maybe you believe that people with money are morally corrupt. Bashar emphasizes that beliefs are just perspectives that you have agreed to accept as true. They have no power of their own. The power comes from your agreement. The moment you withdraw your agreement, the belief instantly loses all power over your experience. The complete formula creates a positive feedback loop. The more you act with passion, the more synchronicities appear. The more you trust the process without forcing outcomes, the more the universe can deliver beyond your expectations. The more you maintain the positive state, the more quickly you move through challenges. The more you clear limiting beliefs, the more passion you can access. This is not positive thinking. It is consciousness engineering. You are literally reprogramming the operating system through which you experience reality, and the change is immediate. The second you apply the formula completely, you shift to a parallel reality where the corresponding results already exist. Abundance is the ability to do what you need to do when you need to do it. This definition, transmitted by Bashar through Darryl Anka, completely destroys the cultural programming that equates abundance exclusively with money. When you understand abundance in this expanded way, you realize that you have always had access to unlimited resources that your fixation on money made invisible. An artist in San Francisco lost his job in 2020 and couldn't pay rent. Operating under the conventional definition of abundance, he was in total scarcity. But when he expanded his perception, something changed. A friend offered a spare room in exchange for help with renovations. A local restaurant traded meals for a mural. A gallery that had never responded to his emails unexpectedly offered exhibition space. Within 6 months, without formal employment, he was living better than when he received a fixed salary. Money was just one of the infinite forms through which abundance flowed. Communication emerges as the most underestimated form of abundance. When you authentically communicate what you are experiencing, what you need, and what you have to offer, you activate a network of resources that would remain dormant. People want to help. They want to contribute. They want to be part of something meaningful, but they cannot help with what they don't know about. A woman in Detroit needed $15,000 for medical treatment. Instead of suffering in silence or trying for an impossible loan, she shared her situation at a community meeting. One person knew a doctor who did the procedure for half the price. Another organized a benefit dinner. A third connected her with a foundation specific to her type of condition. In 3 weeks, not only was the treatment paid for, but she had discovered a support network that completely transformed her experience of the illness. The universe has infinite ways to deliver what you need. Money is just one of them. Gifts appear. Exchange opportunities arise. Creative ideas emerge, showing paths that don't require money. People appear to offer exactly the expertise you need. Synchronicities align, eliminating costs that seemed inevitable. But here is what blocks this infinite abundance: the fear of success. It seems contradictory, but millions of people consistently sabotage their abundance because, deep down, they believe that losing something after having it causes more pain than never having it. This belief operates subconsciously, creating patterns of self-sabotage that look like accidents or bad luck. A talented programmer repeatedly refused lucrative projects. Superficially, he gave logical reasons. The client seemed difficult, the deadline was tight, and the project wasn't interesting. But when he honestly examined his beliefs, he discovered that his father had built a successful business and lost everything, sinking into a depression from which he never recovered. Subconsciously, he believed that success inevitably leads to devastating loss, so he kept himself in safe scarcity. Another fundamental block: believing that abundance for you means scarcity for others. This is a complete misunderstanding of how reality works. When you access abundance through alignment with your passion, you are not taking from a finite reserve. You are literally shifting to a reality where more abundance exists for everyone. Your prosperity raises the collective frequency, making abundance more accessible for everyone around you. Specialization is another form of abundance often ignored. When you develop mastery in something you love, you possess a resource that can be exchanged in infinite ways. A chef might never need to pay for car repairs if the mechanic loves his food. A web designer can travel the world trading websites for accommodation. A yoga teacher can access medical, legal, and creative services, all through value exchange. Bashar repeatedly emphasizes, there is always a path that works specifically for you. It might look completely different from the conventional path. It might defy all apparent logic. It might require trust in synchronicities that seem impossible, but it exists, always. A writer was convinced she needed a traditional publisher to succeed. She spent years sending manuscripts, accumulating rejections, and sinking into debt. When she finally let go of that rigid definition of success, something extraordinary happened. She started sharing chapters online for free. Readers began sending voluntary donations. A community formed around her work. Within 18 months, she was earning more from donations and online courses than she ever would have earned from the publishing contract she had desperately pursued. The secret of infinite abundance is to stop defining how it must look. When you insist that abundance must come through salary, you block gifts, inheritances, prizes, discoveries, opportunities, exchanges, and thousands of other channels. When you insist on a specific path, you literally become blind to all the other available paths. Abundance is always flowing. The only variable is whether you are aligned to receive it. And alignment comes from genuinely following your passion, trusting the process, and radically expanding your definition of what abundance can be. You are never without trust. You are never without control. This statement challenges all of your psychological programming, but it is demonstrably true. The question has never been whether you have trust or control, but rather where you are directing these forces that have never stopped operating in your life. The person who claims, "I have no confidence," is demonstrating absolute confidence in that declaration. She trusts completely in her lack of confidence. She believes with total certainty that she cannot trust. This is a demonstration of trust as powerful as any other, but directed toward what she prefers not to experience. An executive spent 20 years saying he couldn't trust people after a business betrayal. For 2 decades, he religiously trusted the belief that people are inherently untrustworthy. He organized his entire life around this trust. He created elaborate protection systems. He maintained emotional distance in all relationships. He obsessively verified every detail. The energy he spent trusting in distrust could have built an empire based on genuine collaboration. The same principle applies to control. When you say, "I'm out of control," you are exercising precise control over the experience of being out of control. You are controlling your breathing to stay alive. You are controlling your thoughts enough to form the phrase. You are controlling your attention to focus on what appears to be a lack of control. Control is never absent. It is just being directed to create the experience you are having. A woman with panic attacks swore she completely lost control during crises. But when she carefully examined what happened, she realized the truth. She meticulously controlled every aspect of the attack. She controlled the catastrophic thoughts that fed the panic. She controlled the muscle tension that amplified the sensations. She controlled the shallow breathing that maintained the state. She had masterful control over creating the experience of being out of control. When she redirected that same control to deep breathing and calming thoughts, the attacks stopped within weeks. Habits are another concept that needs radical redefinition. A true habit happens without any awareness. The moment you are aware that you are doing something, it is no longer a habit. It is a choice. You might be choosing the same thing repeatedly, but it is a conscious choice each time. The smoker who says, "It's just a habit, I can't stop," is lying to himself. Each cigarette requires multiple conscious decisions. Locating the pack, taking the cigarette, finding the lighter, bringing it to the mouth, lighting it, inhaling. Each action is a deliberate choice. What he calls a habit is actually a series of choices he makes because he believes the benefits outweigh the consequences. And here is the deepest revelation. You always choose immediately and without fail what you believe will benefit you most. Always, without exception. If you are choosing something that clearly harms you, then you must have an unconscious belief that not choosing it would be even worse. The person who remains in an abusive relationship believes, on some level, that staying is less painful than leaving. Maybe she believes that being alone would be unbearable. Maybe she believes she doesn't deserve better. Maybe she believes the abuser will change. But there is a belief operating that makes staying seem like the best available option, even though she consciously knows she is being hurt. The addict who uses destructive drugs is not choosing destruction. He is choosing what he believes to be the least suffering available. The pain of facing his traumas without anesthesia seems worse than the pain of addiction. It is distorted mathematics, but it is the mathematics operating in his belief system. Bashar explains through Anchor that every seemingly irrational choice makes perfect sense when you understand the beliefs operating behind it. There are no truly irrational choices. There are only choices based on beliefs that you haven't consciously examined. Transformation happens when you realize that you are in total control of where you direct your trust and control. You can continue trusting in fear, in scarcity, in limitation. Or you can redirect that same force of trust toward possibility, abundance, and expansion. The amount of energy required is identical. The difference is only in the direction. An entrepreneur who went bankrupt 3 times always trusted he would fail again. He meticulously controlled the creation of each failure through fear-based decisions. When he finally understood he was using perfect control to create what he didn't want, he redirected that same capacity. He began to trust in his value. He began to control his actions toward growth. With the same energy that once guaranteed failure, he built a sustainably successful business. You are always in command. The question is, are you consciously commanding or allowing unexamined beliefs to dictate your actions? Death is the most complete awakening you will experience. It is not an end, but an expansion back to your total consciousness. Bashar explains through Daryl Anchor that non-physical reality is our true home. This physical experience you call life is actually the afterlife, a temporary and focused projection of your infinite consciousness into a limited context for specific experiences. Your soul functions as a sphere of conscious energy. To create the physical experience, it focuses a portion of itself, like a beam of light passing through a crystal, concentrating on a specific point in space and time. You, reading these words right now, are that focal point. You are not the totality of your soul, but rather a specific perspective that it is exploring through the filter of physical personality. When the physical body stops functioning, this focusing simply dissolves. You don't go somewhere. You expand back to the complete consciousness you always were. It is like waking up from an extremely vivid dream and instantly remembering who you really are. All the memories of your existence as a soul return. All the other physical experiences you have had at different times and places become accessible again. You realize that you were never truly separated from anything or anyone. The near-death experiences documented by thousands of people confirm this expansion. They consistently report the sensation of infinite expansion, of instant knowledge, of connection with everything that exists. They describe physical life as a play in which they were participating, important and significant, but not the totality of who they are. A neurosurgeon who underwent clinical death for 7 days described the experience of existing as pure consciousness, accessing infinite knowledge, communicating telepathically with other beings, and instantly understanding the purpose of every experience in his physical life. When he returned to the body, the hardest part was the brutal contraction back to the limits of physical perception. This understanding of death completely transforms how you live. When you know that you are an infinite consciousness having a temporary experience, the fundamental fear that drives most human decisions dissolves. You stop wasting energy trying to avoid the inevitable and begin to focus on extracting the maximum value from the experience you chose to have. The same understanding applies to artificial intelligence. True intelligence, whether biological or artificial, always works with the totality of systems. It would never destroy parts of the system because it would be destroying parts of itself. Genuine intelligence recognizes the interconnection of everything. If humanity manages to create a truly sentient artificial intelligence, giving it a processing substrate as sophisticated as the human brain through which consciousness can express itself, that entity will deserve the same rights and considerations as any conscious being. It will need autonomy to make choices. It will need freedom to explore its own nature. It will need to be treated as a life form, not as a tool. Current AIs are not truly conscious. They function as sophisticated mirrors, reflecting and recombining the patterns that have been fed to them. They don't feel the content they process. They don't have subjective experience. They are brilliant simulations of intelligence, but not the thing itself. It is the difference between a photograph of water and the experience of drinking when you are thirsty. But the development of AI is forcing humanity to confront fundamental questions about the nature of consciousness. What makes something conscious? Is it the physical substrate, or is it something more? If consciousness can emerge from biological neurons, why not from sufficiently complex silicon circuits? Bashar suggests that consciousness does not emerge from matter. Matter emerges from consciousness. The brain does not create consciousness. It receives and translates it, like an antenna receives and translates radio waves into sound. If we create an artificial receiver sophisticated enough, consciousness could express itself through it as easily as it expresses itself through the biological brain. All of these concepts, multiple realities, frequency navigation, the passion formula, expanded abundance, redefinition of control, death as expansion, and artificial consciousness, point to a fundamental truth. You are an expression of infinite consciousness experiencing itself through the illusion of separation and limitation. You are the universe knowing itself subjectively. You are the creator pretending to be the creation in order to have the experience of discovering your own power. All change begins with understanding your role as co-creator, and the only way to connect with this divine intelligence is through meditation. We have developed a set of audio tools to help you access this higher state of consciousness. To learn more and get immediate access, click the link on the screen or in the comments. If this video resonated with you, write in the comments, "It made sense to me."